just wait for that to go live. YouTube is live and Synod resumes. Again, welcome to treasurers and wardens who are with us. We are hopefully in the final session of Synod for this afternoon, but we will take as long as is required. And we go now into Committee of Synod, where we will discuss the budget that is proposed for next year. Just note that we are not approving the budget. We will talk about it. We will hear what Frida has to present. The opportunity is for us to raise issues that we believe are of concern, and then and for us to hear that so that if needs be and if possible, we can make changes, but for you to take that budget back to your parishes and speak to it so that we can all come on board after proper consultation. And then in the November DSC, we will approve it finally. So we're not here to prove it now, we're here to have it explained to us and for us to give some input. I think that's fairly straightforward. And so without further ado, Synod breaks into conference and I'll hand over to Frida. Frida, over to you.
Thank you, Bishop. This is the connection. Thank you.
Exactly.
Am I audible enough?
You are audible.
Okay, thank you, members of Synod. I'll be going through the budget. I'm Frida Chukwumadzi, the Diocesan Administrator. Okay, our proposed budget for 2022 is as follows. Parish pledges, so maybe let me go back to start by what we considered when we were formulating this budget for 2022. First of all, we have to take cognizance of the effect of COVID-19 on its impact on our economy, and the fact that it's very difficult to budget under the circumstances, but nevertheless, we still have to budget. And then on our stipends for both the clergy and administration staff, remember in 2020, last year, we reduced the stipends by 20%. And in 2021, we carried this current year, 2021, the clergy and the administration staff are still at the reduced rate of 2020, of the 2020 less the 20%. Let's say if someone beginning of 2020 was earning 10,000, then we reduced by 20% to say that person is now earning 8,000 for 2020 from May 2020. Then in 2021, we still carried on paying the 8,000. We never increased from that reduced 20%. Now for this year, for 2022 budget, we have taken, for the 22 budget now, we have taken the 2020 budget figure, then added 5% for the stipends. But effectively, we are still lagging behind in our stipends by almost 2 years now. Then the third issue is the what we did in order for us to meet our budget. We had to reduce some of the savings provision for clergy for parishes with no priest, so that at least we can add that amount to our diocesan costs. Then another factor, one of the big cost drivers in our budget is the ordinance. It costs us about 121,000 in 2020 to send one stipend, one ordinance, that's the students to court, 121,000. So that's number 5. So in the decision was taken that we will not, for these 2 years, 2021 and 2022, we are not sending any students to court. Rather, what's happening, we've got students already training, studying through TEEC at the diocese. We've got 3 already studying this year, and they will continue next year studying through TEEC, being monitored by the Dean of Studies, Dean of the Cathedral, assisted by the Bishop. And then,
Screen shares lost.
Yeah. Sorry, I've lost my screen share.
Okay.
But not the, okay. Then the other cost driver, the big one, is the post ordinance. These are the students who had finished studying at court, and then they are in training. They are the curates who are in training at parishes now. So for 2021, we've got 3. And then for 2022, we'll be having 4. These are, when they are in training, they fall under the diocese. So that's one of the big costs we have. The other costs which we have reduced is the travel meetings due to the COVID restrictions. So those are the main factors we have considered when we're drafting the budget. So I'll go to the budget itself, but it's almost in summary form. I don't know how to minimize this.
You can't.
I can't. Okay. Can you see the figures? I think they're quite legible.
Yes.
We can.
Okay. Okay. Under
Yes,
our
we do.
income, yes. Under our income, the first line there is parish pledges. For 2022, we are proposing 5,998,000 compared to our budget for 2021, which was 6,399,000. There is a drop there, mainly because what we have done with our
Hello, you're breaking.
Oh yeah, and press my internet. Hello?
We're having a connectivity issues. Maybe you could switch your video off.
Okay. Okay. Then the next line item is, I was explaining on the parish why there is a drop from 2021 to 2022. It's mainly that component of the stipend portion, which is on the pledges for the parishes with no priest, those parishes which had priests before, but they don't have priests currently. That amount for this priest stipend, we have put it under their provision for clergy. That's why there's that drop there. Then the next line item is the fund withdrawals. It has no change.
Sorry, I'm just trying to mute these guys. Carry on, Frida.
Okay. Then on our fourth line, we've got rentals, recoveries, and reimbursements. There we are budgeting for 768,000 compared to 575,000 in 2021. That one is mainly the recoveries from bad debts and also income which we get for self-funded ministry activities like your training activities for the priests when they go for retreats or any training activities. The parish pay for those priests is not in the budget for the in the pledge which they pay. So we recover that money, and then when we pay, it's self-funding activities. So that's why we call it recoveries. The rentals will be rentals from the properties we rent out, Diocesan properties. Our 22 Dupree currently is on rental. So our total income for 2022, which we are proposing, is 6,913,000 compared to last year's current budget of 7,131,000. Then when we come to the expenses, we've got a category for our administration. There we've got under administration, we've got stipends for the admin staff, where we are budgeting 839,000 compared to 656. This big jump I've already explained to say for 2021, we are less 20% what we had budgeted in 2020. Now we've upped it just by 5% from the 2020 budget figures. Then insurance, there's a drop from what we budgeted for 2021 from 377,000 to 148,000. This is mainly due to the fact that in 2021, our insurance premium went quite considerably down. If you can remember those who have been on Synod before or in DSC, when we were talking in 2020 or 2019, where our insurance premiums were going up so much, or those with parish vehicles, they know that our insurance premiums have been going up for the past 2 years. But for this year, there was a big reduction in the insurance figures. That's why the lower figure for 2022 there. Our audit fee is not, there isn't much difference. There is normal inflationary increment. Bad debts, this is the amount which we budgeted for, to say when we looked at our current status as at end of June, because most of the figures we had here, if you look on the projection, it's not reflecting. The projection which we had here for 2021, we took our actuals for 2021 up to June, then looking at it to say if we are having if we have spent so much or received so much up to June, by December, how will be the figures looking like? So that's the projection. So for same with the bad debts, we looked at the status as at June, the amount of debt we had, and then projected to year end to see the trends, if it should continue in that same trend. Then we said by the end of, for 2022, maybe things will improve. COVID might have disappeared and things might look a bit better. So we predicted that maybe our bad debt will be 383,000 by then. Resource center, these are the cost of the material we sell at the Diocesan Center. You buy our Bibles, you book, Wi-Fi and those things. I think it's a little bit down because of COVID. There hasn't been much sales going on, but we are thinking the output might improve a bit next year. Then the next line item is on bank charges, telephone, stationery, etc. Our figure is there, 199,000. It has also gone down considerably, mainly because of the bank charges. Our bank charges were quite high, but with the introduction of the internet banking now, we have seen there's a big saving, because normally there were parishes paying by checks and those attracted bank charges, and also the cash deposits, of which we are no longer having those. We might find that it's only maybe 1 or 2 parishes which are still doing cash deposits, but we are hoping now that most parishes are catching to the internet banking. I think we only have maybe about 1 or 2 parishes which are still not yet on internet banking. Then if I can move on to the next section, is the bishop ministry, where we are budgeting for the stipend. The big increment is there, I've already alluded to it. Then, because we had reduced for everyone down to 20% in 2020. Then the next line item under bishop's ministry is the housing where the bishop stays. Those are the costs of running the residence, your electricity, water, gardening, insurance, and everything else which goes with it. The ordinance at court, I had explained when we started that next year we won't have an ordinance, any ordinance or students at court next year. That's why we didn't budget anything. And then, but now you see on the next line, we have got a bigger amount now of 194,000 for ordinance at diocese. Those are the students who are studying through TEE. That amount of 194,000 includes their tuition, because we have to pay for their studies, and then their living expenses, we have to pay them the living allowances. Yes, that's how much it will be costing us. There will be 3 of them next year. But it is much cheaper than if we had taken them to court. As I said, that as at last year, it was costing us 121,000 for one student to be at court. Not last year, even this year, 2021. Yeah. Then post-ordinance, those are the ones, the curacy, back from college, were placed in training at parishes. For next year, as I said, there will be 4 of them. And then there's the costs which the diocese has to pay. The costs are carried by the diocese, their stipends are carried by the diocese. The parishes where they are only pay for their, provide for the accommodation and transport. Then ordination costs, if we have any ordination ceremony, we have people coming through, and then we have to provide meals. The ordination candidates have to go for retreat before the ordination. So that's the amount which budgeted for. If you compare with what we paid as it last year, because there was no retreat, we only paid for costs like for getting them their, what do you call this? We only paid for the challenges and stuff, not there was no retreat and there was no ordination ceremony because of COVID. Then the next line item is clergy fellowships, retreats. We are budgeting 95,000. And for 2020, there was no activities happening. So that's why we only have a small amount of 700. It was only for what happened earlier in the year. It was only Guild of St. Mark. Then communication, this is mainly for my Anglican in the website. So the budget there is 45,000 compared to 43,000 for 2021. And then the next line item is commissions. This involve the commissions and then the things like conferences on canon law. The next section is on development. The development is mainly the children's ministry. For 2022, we budgeted 7,500. For 2021, it was 10,000, but the actual for 2020 and even the projection was much lower because of COVID, nothing much was happening. Then growing the church. Growing the church, we've got training for ministry, stipend and administration costs involved in that section, 98,000 compared to 97,000. And then youth ministry, 8,000 compared to 7,000. This is, it's much reduced, and we've been talking about the youth ministry, and it was agreed, I think at DSC, whether it was last year or the other year, that the youth ministry, even at provincial level, that youth ministry must reside with the parishes. So that's why the figure is much lower there. What we are saying is that the parishes must budget for the youth activities in their parishes. We only supplement here and there when they should get they have shortfalls. Then the ministry activities under growing the church, you're rooted in Jesus. Your listening course is 60,000, and then we budgeted 92,000 last for 2020, but nothing much has been happening. Even you can see our projection, because we don't think anything would be happening this year. Then the organizations, this is mainly the only organization which is managed through the diocese, or which coffers come through the diocese, is the Manje Masemola. We budgeted 16,800 for next year. This year, 2020, we budgeted 22,000. But if you look at the actuals, there was nothing for 2021 because it didn't happen. Then the parish ministry, this is where the stipends for the clergy and the expenses related to the parishes reside. The clergy stipends, they are much lower than what we have budgeted for 2021. As I alluded to when I stated that those parishes who had priests before but no longer have priests, the stipends used to be included in their in the stipends here. And then if they during the year, if they didn't have the priest throughout the year, at the end of the day, we would take that money which they are paying towards the priest and put it into their savings. But now it will skew our budget. So what we are now doing, we are also saying when we are budgeting, we want to include their stipends here as well. That's why the figure has gone down. And by the way, we've got 6 stipendiary priests in the diocese plus the dean. So that's the amount which is there. Then retired clergy medical aid, it's 193,000 compared to 151,000. Then removal costs, it's 55,000. What happens with removal costs? Any priest who is coming into the diocese, it's our responsibility to move that priest from wherever they will be coming from. And at retirement as well, if someone is retiring, like we take an example of when Bishop Martin retired, we had to pay for his removals from here to Cape Town. So that's why we put a provision for that. Then parish property and motor vehicle insurance. This is the insurance we pay for the church buildings. All the buildings in the diocese are insured through the diocese. And that's the amount which we pay to the insurers for those buildings. This is only for the parishes. Then for the diocesan properties, our diocesan center, the Bishop's Mark, and all those 22 Dupree, and the diocesan vehicle, we also pay insurance, and then the running costs for the center and the 22 Dupree. Those are the costs, your water, electricity, insurance. Then the last item is the AXA in the wider church. Mainly what we are paying there is the provincial assessment, the pledge which we pay to the provincial office, just like the parishes pay assessment to the diocese in turn pays assessment to the province as well. And then affiliation fees to organizations like your SACC, that's where we'll put them. So our total expenditure for 2022 is 6,899,000. And then our total income is 6,913,000, which gives us as a little surplus of 14,332,000. I now invite questions, Mr. President.
Frida, thank you very much. May I ask, just to help us as we move forward, Frida, if you could go to the top of the page, and let's just for now look at the income. Any questions relating to income? Once we've dealt with questions on income, we can deal with questions on expenses. So they're the income. Any questions related to income? Christchurch Cathedral.
Thank you, Bishop and the wardens. Mine is not a material question on the figures, but yet a question on the figures. I just want to find out from the increment on medical aids. Did we go a little higher on the medical scale than what we had the previous years? I wonder whether I'm making any sense.
Simon, can I ask that we just hold that question over until we get to expenses, and we can talk about medical aid if you don't mind. So for now, any question on income? No questions on income. Let's Frida, maybe we can just scroll up and then see how many line items you get on your screen for expenses. So scroll up until we only see expenses, another line or two. Yeah. So let's just, again, just to try and keep us focused, anything on these two expense items. Number one, administration, and number two, bishop's ministry. So any questions arising to that? And for Frida, just to remember, we've got this outstanding question on medical aid. I'm not sure if medical aid comes at a parish expense.
Yeah.
So when we get to parish, we'll pick up Simon's question. Tlatlaganya Treasurer, I see your hand. Just keep on those two items, we'll limit questions to that. Tlatlaganya, you'll just need to, thank you.
Thank you very much, Bishop. My question is related to the stipends paid to the ordinance at diocese and the post ordinance? May we be provided with the projected stipends for both? Thank you.
Okay, I think that comes up under parish ministry, so we'll try and remember to pick that up. Is it here? Okay, sorry. Frida will speak to it. Sorry.
The projected and post ordinance is 568,284. And then the budget for 2022 is 991.
Treasurer from Tlatlakania, sorry, just to confirm, were you asking for the actual stipend per clergy person or this bulk figure?
My question was related to how much each of them will be getting every month. Thank you.
Or the actual figure per month. Okay.
While Frida is just getting to the actual figure, just a reminder, please, for the minutes of Synod, it would be important for us to register who of the wardens have joined us and the treasurers. So if you wouldn't mind, in the chat, about at the very bottom of your screen, approximately in the middle, is a little button saying chat. Please just enter your name and your parish and whether you're the treasurer or the warden. We will pick that up and that will all be added to the minutes. So if you don't give that, then we can't minute that you were in fact present. So we would really appreciate that you do that. If not too sure, just ask one of our young people to assist you. So please give us your name and the parish that you represent in the chat column. Done, Frida?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. The stipend for the
You've dropped. So. Okay. Frida's connection has dropped. I hope you can hear me. She's just going to reconnect. We've had untold issues with connection in Polokwane.
Okay, to answer you, the stipend for the post ordinance, that's the curacy, is 246,290 per annum. Was I audible enough?
Frida, repeat that last section again, please.
The post ordinance stipends for each of them is 246,258
per annum.
per annum.
Was that the only question from Tlatlakania? I think Tlatlakania, you are covered. So thank you for that. That's the annual figure. Obviously, I presume you just divide by 12 to get the monthly figure. If my accounting is correct. Sorry.
Thank
Anything
you,
else?
Bishop.
Yes.
Rashada is answered.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
We are
Thank you
saying-
so much for your question.
Thank you.
Any other questions to do with the screen share? Just limiting at the moment to administration and bishop's ministry. Okay, let's move on, Frida, to the next two, if they'll fit on the screen. Obviously, you can bring up questions a little later if you need to. Christchurch Cathedral, you have a hand up.
Thank you, Bishop. It's Dean Dulce from the Cathedral. Under number 2, Bishop's Ministry, I just want to know where either we have the provision for the Lambeth Conference.
Thank you. We have the provision for the Lambeth Conference under the church, the wider church assigned wider church. That's why we provide for it.
Thank you. Christchurch Cathedral, you still have a hand up. Does that mean there is another question? Or did you just forget that your hand is up? Hand has gone down. Right, let's scroll to the next set of screens. So I think the next ones would be then what is shown here. That's 4, 5, 6, and 7, growing the church, organizations, parish ministry, and diocesan property vehicles. Any questions for clarification on those 4 areas? Susan.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Susan Elliott from Letaba Parish, but I'm asking with the guild hat on, what amount of money has been allocated for the development of the guild going forward? Because we are wanting to improve and increase our training. Where is it in the budget? Thank you.
It falls under growing the church, under ministry activities.
So could I then ask?
Number 4.
Okay. I'm not, can you still hear me?
We
Yes.
can.
Okay. So how much is allocated specifically to the guild training?
Can we hold that until we get to that line item? I think it's under, where is it? Under? It is under growing the church, and there it is on the screen. So, okay, thank you. Frida?
It is under the ministry activities.
So how much?
Is that for the month? 60,000.
For what?
For Gildas and Mark.
Diocesan. What has been happening in the past, most of the activities which happen for the Diocesan Mark, those are those activities which are self-funded in the sense that whatever training happens, the delegates pay for the training.
I think that we're going to need some budget for us to bring in other lecturers to improve our training and improve the guild. So we need something a little bit more than self-funding.
I think within that ministry activities, we can work around it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure whether next year we'll be able to do all the activities which we are planning for.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Susan. And if you and the Rapashli can just monitor that and keep Frida in the loop, just so that we know what's happening, and that will help us to budget more effectively for the following year, 2023. But thank you, that's a good question. Anything else on what is shown on the screen growing the church organizations, parish ministry, diocesan property and vehicles. When you're ready. There was a question, was there not, on parish ministry?
From Simon.
Sorry?
From Simon.
Yes, to do with medical aid.
Yeah. Okay, Simon, can we have your question now?
President Simon Namakan from Christchurch. I just wanted to find out whether we have gone a scale up on the medical aid. Is it just a yearly increment, perhaps, or perhaps we have moved a scale up on the medical aid improvement? Thank you.
Thank you. On the medical aid, it's just an inflationary increment. We haven't changed the scheme or the level of the scheme. We are still on bonitas, and for retired clergy, they are on bond cap. Is it bond cap?
Yes.
Bond cap, yeah. And for the stipendiary priests, they are on bonitas primary.
So, yeah, if I may, that's what we were on this year. We came down last year. We came down last year because of lack of income, and we're going to stay on that for next year, 2022. So, Simon, I trust that answers your question, and I do see a hand up for Christchurch Cathedral.
Thank you, Bishop. Synod members. My question is on the parish properties. From the bishop's charge, something was said about the re-evaluation. And I just wanted to check, how regular do we check these properties? Because in some cases you find that we are paying insurance for the buildings which are worthy to be paid for. How regular? Maybe we should have something in common to evaluate our properties and even to check if ever what we pay is relevant. The second question that I'm having is with regard to the stipend budget. How far are we with the 20% cut? Is it away or is it still going to be on in the new budget? Thank you.
Just having to hear you through the speaker. So you can speak to that as soon as you're ready. Yeah. Sends the schedule out every year, so that covers that.
I think on the first question of the parish properties, the values of thereof, each year, like now around this time, we'll be sending out the insurance schedules to each parish, whereby we ask the wardens to evaluate their buildings if they have improved their buildings, or if they've bought some new equipment. Those are the contents they need to indicate and change the values. But now and then, the parish just return the forms as they are. So it is upon the parishes, especially these wardens, to check those forms and look at their properties, because we rely on what they give us.
So if I may, that insurance schedule will list every building and the contents, not the individualized contents, but the total figure for every single parish. So it's up to the wardens, the priest in charge or the rector, the treasurer, to say, well, we've got a building that we're paying insurance for example, but we know the building's no longer there. It got knocked down or blown down or whatever. Then you need to indicate that back to the diocese to please remove that building. And if you have another building and it used to be just an MTL, and so it was insured for a very small amount, but you've now added to it, and there's a roof and electricity and there's pews or chairs, etc. So now you need to increase the value of the insured building and contents. Then again, you need to let us know. So as Peter said, it very much is in the hands of the archdeacon, the rector, the wardens to make that the schedule for each church is accurate. And of course, if you have any questions, you're welcome to phone the diocese. That schedule is very accurate and it lists absolutely everything that we know about the parish. So if it's not there, it means we don't know about it, and you must please let us know. I think, David, that answers your first question. So Frida, the second question.
The second question was about stipends. I did state when we started that our stipends were decreased in 2020 to decrease by 20%. Come 2021, they remained at that 20% reduced amount. For example, someone earning 10,000 beginning of 2020, the stipend was reduced 2020 to 8,000. That's from May 2020. And still in 2021, that person is still earning that 8,000. But now for budget for 2022, what we did was took the 2020 budget figure, the original figure of 10,000, then we added 5%.
Dave, I trust that answers your question. I see there is another hand up from the cathedral. This is the Cathedral Hub, just to let you know, for the wardens and treasurers joined us, and there's a good number of people sitting in the Cathedral Hall, and they generate quite a lot of income. So Cathedral.
I have still got another 2 questions, Bishop Luke, after this one.
Bishop and Synod members, I said 5% added, but my question is based on 20%. Is 20% erased or is still on? Because if you say 5%, it will mean 15% is still off. That's my understanding.
The reason why it's gone all silent is because they're busy conferring in the boardroom. Their bishop is speaking to the legal representative as well as the treasurer. So please be patient.
We're back online and
that again, in 2020, come May 2020, someone who was earning 10,000, stipend was reduced by 2020 to 8,000. Then 2021, we didn't do anything with that salary. We left it at 8,000, which is less than 20%. Then what we are saying is for come 2022, we are going back to the 10,000, which you are supposed to be getting in 2020. Then we add 5%. We increase by 5%.
I trust that is answering David's question. Again, Cathedral, there is yet another hand up.
Bishop, is a follow-up of Simon from the Cathedral. It's a follow-up on the medical aid. I have a serious concern. I know we are working from a very tight position where to maneuver is really a difficult. But is there no mechanism we can come up with to perhaps upscale the medical aid a little bit? Because with the increment that is happening with the stipends, I understand it is the 2020 stipend and then 5% plus. But then we keep in the medical aid at the very same level. And I think we might be putting our priests and their family at risk. And now, I know I'm saying this, but I'm not coming up with a solution like where money is lying, where we can put an increment on the medical aid. But I'm requesting Synod to really try and look into the medical aids and see if there's no way that we can find a little space to maneuver to perhaps upscale a little bit. That's my submission, Bishop. Thank you.
I think we're a member of our finance board who is going to respond to that. Mr. Ledwaba.
Good afternoon. I'm A.B. Ledwaba. I'm a member of the Diocesan Finance Board. I'm part of St. Luke Parish. We understand the concerns that are being put forward in terms of the budget that has been presented. Maybe I'll have to just give a quick background on how we have put the budget together. You will recall that when we were confronted with COVID, it was something that we never anticipated. It's something that has negatively impacted our finances in the diocese. And we had to call an urgent Diocesan Finance Board meeting to look at our finances, to look at what can be done. And unfortunately, we had to take some of the difficult decisions. It was a number of meetings that were very emotional, where we had to look at everything on our budget. And you'll recall that some of the items that some members of the Synod are raising are things that we really said, in a way of presenting a budget which represents survival, some of the things had to be reduced or completely be removed. And this budget that has been presented is a budget purely for survival. I think we are still going into a difficult space, more especially if you look at how the finances are flowing into the diocese, and also what is happening out there where people are losing their jobs. And when people lose their jobs, that ultimately impacts the church, because people find it difficult to give if they do not have income. And we took a decision that at least let's make sure that basic survival is there. And one of the things that was looked into is the stipends, medical aids. And if you look at our budget, we only have a surplus of about 14,000 rands. And from 14,000 rands, really, what can you do with the 14,000 rands? And we know that there will be some expenses that are going to crop up unexpected. And maybe we might have to just look at that 14,000. And running a diocese as big as ours really requires a lot of resources. And that budget really is a shoestring budget. It was very tight. We had to take very difficult decisions. And I think for now, let's accept that, you know, it's a budget that is meant for survival. Thanks.
Thank you, AB, much appreciated. AB is also the chair of the Finance Board. I can assure you that the Finance Working Committee and the Finance Board have agonized for months over what must be reduced, what must be cut. So the medical aid figure impacts dramatically on me. I'm one of those receiving medical aid. But I also know that there is not a single cent available to increase it. Just isn't affordable unless we get more money. And the only way to get the money is from the parishes. And we're very aware that the parishes have been pushed sometimes to the extreme. And it's unfair for us to ask for any more. The consequence, though, is that the clergy suffer. They are on a reduced stipend in real terms and are on a significantly lowered medical aid scheme. So difficult, but I trust the Finance Board have done the very best they can. So Amy, thank you for that. And Simon, thank you for the question and the concern. I'm sure you're not satisfied with the answer, but I'm not sure how we can truly deal with that. Other hands, the cathedral is keep putting a hand up. Others are welcome to do the same if you have a question. So we're back to the cathedral.
Good afternoon, Bishop. It's Nadia Mokoti here, the treasurer of the cathedral. I've got a few points. Firstly, I want to say thank you for the increase in the clergy. The 5% increase will really go a long way, and we appreciate it, knowing that we've been going through difficult times. And also just a reminder that our clergy should be on the top of our list in terms of their welfare. So thank you for that. The second one I want to ask about is just a follow-up on the church building and the church valuations. I wanted to suggest that the diocese gets an insurance broker to have a look at all our buildings. The reason being that at the cathedral, we have found ourselves without fire extinguishers. So meaning should a fire arise, then insurance might not cover us. So I don't know what is happening at the other parishes. So having an insurance broker come in can also assist us to check if we are overinsured or underinsured, so that we are in line with our insurance. And then the third comment I wanted to bring up is on the expenses under number 3, which says development, and they said it's for children's ministry. I wanted to suggest, because I see here we budgeted 10,000 Rand. The actual spend was 3,873 currently. I wanted to suggest that material be sourced and be taken to the various parishes for children's ministry. Some of the children might not be back yet at church due to COVID, but as soon as the kids are back at church, so that the kids can have the material ready. So we don't keep this money and budget for it, but not use it. It is very important to start the kids young, learning about the ministry. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nare.
Okay, thank you. On the issue of the getting a broker for the church buildings, maybe let me give a background to how our insurance works. We insure our buildings through what we call JIA, which is Joint Insurance Administration. We are 4 dioceses: Diocese of St. Mark, Diocese of the Highveld, Diocese of Christ the Church, the King, and Diocese of Pretoria. And we've got a broker already whom we go through, but it's not their duty, or maybe, well, let me put it this way, that how can I put it? It's not their duty to come around to the parishes to do the valuations. We should give them the valuations. Otherwise, if we want someone to do the valuation, we have to get, each diocese must get a valuer who goes around to do the valuation. And the last valuation was done maybe 10 years ago. Was it a very expensive exercise? What they advised us is to say, if parishes can maybe, so that we can see whether we are near, our values are near to be correct or something like that. If we can take the meterage of our buildings, that at least can give us an idea of how much we must insure our buildings at. Then if we look at things like fire extinguishers, surely those are some of the basics which we as at parish level, we should be able to know that if it's a public building, we need to have such things in place. I'm not sure whether I've covered your question.
Thank you, Frida. Without wanting to get too bogged down, I trust, Nare, that has given you at least some satisfaction to an answer. I think I want to say also that whilst the discussion is important, there's also the opportunity for you and as treasurers and wardens to speak directly to Frida. I'm sure she would appreciate that. And then one-on-one, you can go into quite a lot of the detail so that you can understand what it is that she is doing, and she can also understand some of your concerns. So it's not, you know, we're not developing the budget from scratch. A tremendous amount of work has happened, but this is to give you the big picture, to answer those big questions. But Frida is available to discuss issues with you should you have something quite particular. I hope that helps and is understandable. I see a hand has popped up. Don. Screen share again. Don, your hand is up. The floor is yours.
Sorry, Bishop, I had spoken. Sorry, I think I might have been on mute. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, what I was saying
yes,
is that Frida has very specific, she's got very detailed schedules of all the assets in each parish. And maybe what can happen is the treasurers can ask her to forward those to them, and they can do a comparison of the physical environment against the schedule we have and see if anything's missing off those schedules. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Yeah, that goes out every year, and I think Frida intimated it will probably be going out quite soon from now. So treasurers, please to look out for that, and wardens. If you don't get it, ask your priest in charge or rector where it is. And we can always send it to you again. It's usually emailed to people, and it is a good detailed breakdown of what we have. So it answers Don's question specifically. I think this is the end of expenses. So again, any questions to do overall with this aspect of the budget? While we wait to see if there are any other questions, the next part of the budget presentation is to look at the specific parish pledge. So once you've dealt with questions arising out of this summary of the diocesan budget, we'll move to the parish pledges. And I see the screen share has already started. So any questions about the overall budget? No questions, going, gone. Right, Frida, back to into your hands to look at the individual parish pledges.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. This one is the summary of the pledges for each parish now. I wanted to point out that, again, remember we reduced our pledges from May 2020. We had a revised budget from June 2020. And when formulating this budget, we are still very much aware that there is COVID. People out there are struggling, though we are still encouraging people to do their best. And in that spirit, our proposed budget for 2022 is still below the original 2020 figures. If I can take an example of Christ Church, I don't know whether I'll be able to move, but I can just, okay, yeah. If I can take an example of Christ Church, we are proposing a budget of 56,400 for 2022. Their budget for 2021 is 52,980. For 2020, the original 2020 was 60,200. So you can see we are still below 2020 original figures. I think this is correct for almost all the parishes, except for one or two. But basically, all in all the pledges are still below our original 2020 figures. So actually, we are lagging behind with 2 years in terms of increments. So I'll just scroll down because I don't think it's necessary for me to be reading because it's just figures here. What informs those figures? You get response forms. The treasurers are aware of the process. We'll issue out the response forms. On the response forms, you see the details, what year you are paying for. It will be, for those parishes with clergy, it will be your clergy stipend. Then if you have got self-supporting priest in your parish, you find some parishes, they do pay their self-supporting, but they don't tell us. We only know about one parish, Moleji. That's the only one we are aware of that pays a self-supporting clergy because they pay it through the diocese. And that's what we encourage, that it has to be paid through the diocese. Then you have a section for provision for clergy for those parishes who are saving for the future, to say maybe in future, especially those with no rectors, they will be saying we are putting money aside so that by the time we get a rector, we'll be having money to pay the rector, maybe to buy a vehicle for the rector. We need to buy or to erect a house for the rector. So that's the purpose of that fund. When you pay it, will be on your pledge, but then when we receive it, we take it back to we put it into your savings account. Then there's a portion for archdeacon costs. This is to cover the costs incurred by the archdeacons when they go around the parishes in their archdeaconries. Then insurance will be the insurance for the parish buildings, the building itself and the contents. for your particular parish. Because when we have that schedule, which we sent to our insurers, it's itemized per parish. If, let's say, Christchurch has got 3 buildings, it will have 3 buildings with their values and their contents, and we get a premium per each building, and the contents per each building, it has its own premium. So that's the cost which you pass over to the parish. And then there's a section for provincial for assessment, provincial assessment. The pledge, the assessment which we pay to the province, so the parishes also contribute towards that. Then the next line item will be retired clergy medical aid contribution. The medical aid we pay for the retired clergy. And then my Anglican subscription, then group accident cover. And then the last one will be the diocesan course, because we are saying the diocese doesn't generate any income. The costs have to be covered by the costs for the diocese are covered by the parishes. So there will be a section for the diocesan costs that would inform your pledge. So the response forms for those who are at Christchurch Hub, they will be given to you before you go home today. And then those who are not present will email them. And for those who don't have emails, we'll see means of delivering them, either via WhatsApp when you provide us with your numbers, or we'll see whether you can come and collect from the diocese, but they are ready to be collected. And then the date for return of the response forms is the 9th of November, 2021, so that we will know the responses, because those responses will inform our final budget for presentation in November to Synod, to DSC. So if we can get those forms back by the 9th of November, by that time we are hoping you would have had your vestry meetings to accept our figures.
Can we call for questions, if any? And this has been emailed to everyone, so
That's it.
the actual budget. And
Yeah, I did email.
I'm just checking with Frida because the budget, either in its complete form or a summary, I'm not too sure, has already been emailed to treasurers and wardens, I think, and rectors. The parish response form will go out today, and included in the email is the screen share that you're looking at the moment, which gives you the breakdown for each parish as per the archdeaconry. So in theory, you've already received this and should have it available. But I want to just pause and ask, are there any questions on this screen share, which covers all the pledges that we are asking from the parishes? And in asking, we open that window of opportunity for you to come back to us and to point out that maybe it's too high or too low, and you're going to voluntarily increase it. Obviously, you need to motivate that, because this is the income. And so if you decrease your pledge, and you can motivate why that must be decreased, then we have to cut something out of the budget. So it becomes a very difficult exercise. It's that, as A.B. Ledwaba shared earlier, as chair of the committee, it's incredibly finely balanced. We're hanging on a shoestring, I think were his words. So yeah, we've done, the Finance Working Committee, Finance Board's done an incredible amount of work on this, but we need to do so in consultation with you. Any questions on these figures to do with the parish pledges? I don't see any hands yet, so while we wait for people to come, if they so wish, remember that the process is us sharing publicly, having an opportunity for discussion, question and answer now. You would then talk about this in your council meetings, and you would then take it to your budget vestry meeting, which must be held sometime in October, if my memory is correct. And you then feed back to the diocese your acceptance or your request for alterations. We then do the best we can to meet you. Can't guarantee that. And we then will finally approve the budget in November. So that's the kind of timeline going forward.
Bishop Luke, is a breakdown in transmission?
Are you able to hear me? Is it my breakdown or where is the breakdown?
We can hear you now. Early on this, your signal was very intermittent. Do you have a hand raised from Tlatlaganya?
Yeah, I see that. And I had asked them, but maybe it hadn't been heard, for Tlatlaganya to ask their question.
Thank you very much, Bishop. Mine is not a question, but just a word of encouragement to all the parishes. Looking at the very tremendous job that the DFB has done, let us go back to the parishes and encourage our people to accept the proposed budget so that we are able, as a diocese, under these very difficult conditions, we are able to grow the ministry. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Those very positive and encouraging words. I certainly support what you say. Thank you. Christchurch Cathedral, you have a hand raised.
Simon, Christchurch Cathedral. I'm looking here at Kopanongashi, and I see that Musamaria's budget was what, 270, and the proposed 2020 is 0. Now my question is, do we have any activity happening there? And if there is, why no budget for them? And it goes back to the discussion that we had earlier about leaders giving. Does that mean that even the leader does not give? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. What the situation with Mosamaria is that if you are aware, it was a fresh expressions church. It was not our normal Anglican, but they were affiliating to us, and they were now under the Mulej parish. But come this year, 2021, they said they are no longer part of us. That's why we didn't budget for them for 2022.
Yeah, so Mosamaria does not exist as a fresh expression in the diocese. So that's why it's 0. They are no longer part of us. But Simon, thank you for that question. Are there any other questions? Christchurch Cathedral.
Bishop, members of Synod, I'm David Morgan, Dean of the Southwest. And I'm having a question here regarding the parish of Balalekis budget is 4,900. And I wanted to check, should they have a clergy, plus minus how much can they pay for their pledge? I mean, what
David, could you repeat that, please? It came through a little bit indistinct for us.
Thank you, Bishop. Synod. I'm the Asian of Southwest, of which part of it is Palale, which is without the clergy now, without the lay minister. And I just wanted to check, in case we manage to maybe to appoint a clergy, plus minus what would be their budget?
So what's the cost as a clergy person, approximately?
A rough figure for a clergy person is about 25,000 just per month for the clergy person.
The reason it's a little bit vague is because a clergy person who is unmarried only pays a medical aid for themselves. But if they have a wife and one child or two children or three children, all of that begins to affect the medical aid. And the medical aid is one of the biggest single costs on the stipend. And so that's why there's a degree of hesitation in giving a specific figure. So approximately mid-20,000 would be a good, I think you'd call it a ballpark figure to work on. So for Lepalali to get a minister, they will need to add approximately 25,000.
Minimum 20,000.
A minimum of 20,000, rounded up about 25. Could be a bit more, could be a bit less per month to get a clergy person. That will be their pension, their stipend, some nominal allowances, medical aid. Frida, would that include the house and a vehicle? That would be over and above that.
No. That will include just the basic stipend and then the bonus, pension, medical aid, group life cover, UIF, and retirement housing.
So that 25,000, that ballpark figure, that's what it includes, the screen share at the moment. The vehicle costs and housing costs would still have to be calculated by the parish on top of that figure. So, David, I trust that will answer your question. Are there any others? And David, if it doesn't answer your question, please do come back to us. Is there anything else you want to share, or can we just basically round that off? I think I'm just checking with Frida if there's anything else from the budget perspective that she needs to share. And it looks as if there isn't. So AB's put up a comment, so let me just read that because he's our chair. AB's just quoting 2 Corinthians chapter 9. Whoever sows sparingly will reap sparingly. If you sow generously, you will reap generously. So yeah, good timely reminder of the scripture that leads our ministry and our giving to God. Thank you, AB. Any questions? Otherwise, we can begin to round this conference to bring it to a close. We've looked at the budget overall. It's a summary budget. And we've looked at and explained how the parish pledge is arrived at and what those figures consist of. Any questions? While I wait for any questions perhaps to come, I'll repeat what I said earlier because it sounded as if I did, the connection became a little unstable and you may have missed. This is a presentation so that you know what it is we are talking about. It's an opportunity for you to ask questions of clarification, to raise issues you can immediately encounter. And all of this has already been emailed to treasurers and wardens. And we would now ask that you take this to your council meetings and then to your budget vestry meeting, which must be held in October. So it's approximately a month to 6 weeks away before you would need to hold a budget vestry meeting, and then approve the figures that we have presented, and you would return or send back to us what we call the return, which gives you the breakdown for your parish. And we would then modify the budget if required and if we can, and then present that at DSC for final approval. Frida's also reminding me that all treasurers and wardens, etc., rectors are free to call her or to arrange a meeting with her so that you can look at this in greater detail. It's a vast collection of figures and it can be very confusing. I have to look quite solidly to understand it all. So you're free to talk to Frida, free to meet with her. Please just arrange that meeting beforehand. So that she can then answer your questions. We want to be as transparent as possible, to work with you as much as possible, and as AB reminded us, for you to work with us as much as possible. I'd like to ask for the final time, any comments or questions from anyone? On my screen, I'm not seeing any notification of hands going up. So calling once, twice, done. Thank you very much. I hope you've managed to follow. It's a very unusual way of doing it using technology, and our screen sizes are limited. So thank you for participating. Thank you for persevering. But please remember, we are here to help you, especially Frida and her team, as much as we possibly can. And thanks to the Finance Working Committee and the Finance Board, who have had innumerable meetings to get us to this point, and will be available to help you going forward. Technically now we are finished then with this conference, there being no further questions raised to us, which means that we can begin to draw today's session of Synod to a close with your permission.
No, we want to stay.
Don, are you wanting us to stay longer, or were you just...
No, sorry, Bishop, I just wanted to say, I just wanted to give a vote of thanks to Frida and her team to prepare this budget in these extremely difficult times. Budgets are never easy things, and especially with the current problems that we have, I think she's done a sterling job, and I think we should all give her a round of applause. Thanks.
Amen. Amen. I'm always amazed at how Frida can look so young all the time with so much stress. So well done. Technically, wardens and treasurers, you're welcome to leave the meeting if you so wish, but you're also welcome to stay. We have just 2 items of business to conclude. One is to give notice of nominations, because tomorrow morning we have elections, and then we close with evening prayer. So wardens and treasurers, you're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to just end the meeting for yourself if you need to. Nominations. Nominations will close at 4 o'clock this afternoon. I'm aware with the vagaries of technology, what you send us at 4 sometimes only arrives a little later. We're open to that flexibility, but we're asking that we endeavor to close nominations by 4 o'clock. Nomination forms have been sent to everyone. You're welcome to send your nominations in, properly proposed, properly seconded. Please make sure that the nominee, the person you have proposed, also the person who is proposing and seconding, know that they are being proposed, are being used, their names being used. Send that through to the IT team. They will enter that onto the ballot form, and tomorrow morning the ballot form will go out and the voting process will begin. And hopefully by the end of Synod, our electoral committee will be able to give us the results of the voting. So I see Robbie's hand is up. Robbie, I don't know if that's a point of order on the nomination and voting forms. If not, then I'll leave you for later. So is it something to do with nominations?
It is, yes.
Okay, please speak to it.
A message from Nkadimeng and Tebogo from the parish of Sekukuni. We're asking for ballot papers on the emails. I'm not too sure how that works because obviously they haven't received anything yet.
I'm thinking by ballot paper, that's the actual voting paper. They have not been sent out. It's only the nomination forms. But the IT team are monitoring the chat and they will hopefully follow up on that. But I can say that the voting form or the ballot paper will only go out tomorrow morning. We are still receiving nominations and we are open to receive nominations until 4 o'clock this afternoon. If technology lets you down and it comes a little later, we will be flexible. But please endeavor to complete nominations by 4 o'clock. I hope that is acceptable and understandable. Just very quickly to open the floor, Jonathan or Rendani, briefly, do you need to fill in anything that I've left out?
Nothing from Rendani. I guess Jonathan might have something to say.
Thanks, Rendani. Jonathan, have I left out anything?
Bishop, thank you very much. I think we have it all in hand now. And so, yeah, we just wait for the last nominations to come in. And I will have compiled the nomination lists by about 6 this evening. I'll pass them on to Rendani. He will compile the ballot papers and send them out to you by tomorrow morning. By start of business tomorrow, we will have the ballot papers with you.
Jonathan, thank you very much. And just very briefly from the chair, a very big word of thanks to Jonathan and Rendani. Because we're using technology, we can't vote for people with a show of hands, etc. It's so incredibly difficult and complicated. So we are using Google Docs and Google Forms, which is pretty much a learning for most of us, myself included, and they are guiding us and helping us through this process. I really do appreciate that. Frida, you're still on screen share. You better close screen share. We're all looking at Frida's emails. Waterberg, you are leading us. Is it Waterberg? No, it's Western Archdeaconry. You're leading us in evening prayer, and we are ready for that. While they prepare themselves, Synod, is there anything I've left out? Because after evening prayer, Synod will adjourn. Anything I've left out? Anything you wish to raise urgently? I see no hands going up. Western Archdeaconry, as soon as you're ready, please start evening prayer.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the Synod. Before we close with a prayer, let me read 2 verses from Psalm 73 as an encouragement and the leadership that we have witnessed this afternoon. What else have I in heaven but you? Since I have you, what else could I want on earth? My mind and my body may grow weak, but God is my strength. He is all I ever need. Are rapeleng, Papa le godimo re a leboga. Re leboga tshireletso ya gago. Go be go le rena go tloga letšatši la maabane re thoma kopano ya rena ya Synod. Le mamotlha o sala le rena o šireleditše. Re fitlhile mafelelong a letšatši le lengwe. Re lebeletše letšatši la kamoso, letšatši la bošupa. Mo re tla be re duma kopano ya rena ya Synod. E ba le rena magae a rena e be wena o re šireletša. Le bao ba tšeago maeto go boela magae a bona e be wena o sepela go bona. Gomme re leboga tšohle Papa mo leineng le le maatla la morena wa rena Jesu Kriste. Amen.
Thank you, Weston, very much. Folks, before we adjourn, a reminder, tomorrow morning, we are free to join the cathedral at 8 o'clock if you are anywhere near Polokwane or wish to travel. Otherwise, join and follow on the Facebook for Cathedral, the Cathedral Facebook page, and you can follow the service. If you are at home, you're welcome to do so with bread and wine. And when I celebrate, we believe in faith that your bread and wine will be consecrated, and you can join us with communion. And then Synod will open the Zoom meeting. Sorry, guys. Synod will open the Zoom meeting at 10 o'clock for you to log in, and at 10:30, Synod will resume, and those details are on your order paper. That's what happens tomorrow morning. Thank you very much for your participation. A long day, but a good day. Have a good rest and evening, and we'll meet again to worship tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. God bless and go well.